And with that, we welcome you inside this coach's press conference edition of Big Ten Live. I'm your host, Rick Pizzo. Hard to believe, but we are officially more than halfway through the Big Ten regular season, every team playing at least 6 of its 12 regular season games. Coming up this weekend, 4 teams are on bye, which means we have 5 conference matchups, 3 including the men you see on your screen, who you will hear from over the next 90 minutes. Ryan Day and Ohio State set to take on Iowa. We'll hear from the head Buckeye. As I just promised, Michael Locksley joins us ahead of Maryland's showdown with Northwestern, giving us an update on quarterback Taulia Tagovailoa, and James Franklin and the Penn State Nittany Lions looking to bounce back after that disappointing performance against Michigan. Another tough showdown this weekend as they face Minnesota. But we do start with the team which leads the Big Ten and is one of the top scoring teams in the entire country, going against this week one of the best defenses in the country. Ryan Day on his team's matchup with Iowa and so much more.
Funny you ask. Coming off of the bye week, we got a lot of guys rest, and then went on the field a little bit yesterday. We got a big practice today. So right now we're not going to give any injury updates. But then as we get closer to the end of the week, we'll have a better idea.
Third row left, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors. Ryan, I think Iowa's defense is ranked 3rd in the country in points allowed per game. So how much do you view this as a measuring stick kind of game for the offense?
No, I think they're very good. Been working hard and trying to figure out how to attack them. But they're very good in what they do. And just the minute you think that they're not going to change it up, they do, and very well coached. So. There's a reason why they're ranked so high and year in and year out are one of the better defenses in the country. They do a great job, and so this will be certainly a challenge for the offense.
4th row middle, Andy Anders, Buckeye Sports Bulletin.
Yes, Coach. I know this has been revisited several times already, but obviously before the season you called for a top 10 defense. Right now, 10th nationally in scoring, 5th in yards per game, 7th in pass, 9th in rush defense. Is there any added sense of security, I guess, that maybe, at least statistically, the defense is kind of living up to that expectation you set? I
think we made some progress, but the goal is to be the best in the country at everything we do. So I don't think that was anything out of school. I think it's just the way that we approach our work here. And there's been really good things, but that was the first half of the season. Now we're on to the second half of the season, and second half of the season started yesterday with getting out in the field. So. Nothing we've done in the past matters anymore. All that matters is what we're doing moving forward, and the challenges are only going to be harder. But there's been some good things, but certainly a lot more bigger challenges ahead.
4th row right, Cameron T. Robinson, Athletic.
Ryan, last week, going into the bye week, you mentioned how good you thought CJ had done with his movement and getting outside the pocket. In the offseason, was that something that you talked to him that you wanted to see him improve? Or that's something he dissected himself in his own game and took that upon himself to get better at?
I think it all started in the weight room with the work that he put in with Mick and everybody there, just getting stronger, faster, more powerful. And so because of that, that's allowing him opportunities to do more, things outside the pocket than he's done in the past. So, I think his body changed in the offseason, and that he just put in a really good offseason. So I think that's really where it all came from.
Right behind him, Spencer Holbrook, 11 right.
Ryan, did you see what you needed to see, you guys as a staff, from the corners this week to make you think that some of those issues you guys had pop up and been corrected or maybe fixed?
Yeah, I think they've been working hard. I think they've been working hard at practice. I think they understand where they need to get better. We'll find out more on Saturdays. That's the ultimate test. But the preparation's there. I think the attention's there. I think the work's there. And that's the way it is for all of us.
Far right over here, Dom Sperry, WBNS, 10 TV.
Coach, overall, you said you want to get back to the basics during the bye. Just give us an idea of how it went and what kind of progress you feel like you made.
Yeah, I think it allows us the opportunity to take a step back and look at where we're at and rebite on things, just little things like how we meet, how we go out to practice, how we stretch, how we go through our individual drills, identify our techniques and fundamentals that we need to get better at, because what happens, 6 games in, you start to focus a little bit more on scheme. So I think we did a good job of that. But again, the emphasis this week will be on Iowa, but we still will be hammering the fundamentals and techniques, because that's what Iowa does such a great job with. I think that they're very, very good with their pad level, great with their hands. They understand their offense and defense better than you. That's their goal. You can tell that. And they play good complementary football. So hopefully this off week has allowed us to rebite in that area.
As good as they are on D, they're dead last in total offense. Is there anything that needs to be said about 238 yards a game? How do you not be complacent about that?
Well, I think their style is similar to some of the teams we played, where they want to control the game. They're not looking or interested in scoring 1 million points or getting a ton of yards. They want to just win the game, and that's their focus. And you can tell that they're complementary, and they've done that for a long time, and it's a winning recipe. So, we're not going to look too far into that, and just make sure that we're identifying how to go win the game.
Front row right, Austin Ward, Rivals 97.1.
Ryan, hypothetically, if Jackson can come back on Saturday, what does that mean for the rest of that unit? It's a lot different than when he got hurt, with more experience for Emeka and Marvin, and Julian's healthy. Like, I know that's a good problem to have, but what do you think that would mean to the rest of that? How have you thought about that?
Yeah, I think it allows us more depth there. It takes some stress off the other guys, which they've taken on a lot in these first 6 games. I think if you 7 weeks ago said, here's what's going to happen, you would have realized that's a pretty heavy burden for those guys. Special teams, a lot of reps at their position, and I think they've done well and benefited from that. I think we all have, but getting him back certainly would take some stress off of them, and and I think then we'll be at full strength.
Just to follow up, Jackson would still be a starter for your team then?
Yeah, I would say so.
Good use of the follow-up. That's what it tested out. Right next door, Tim May, Letterman Row on 3.
Yeah, one and done. Ryan, go back to what you just talked about a second ago or a minute ago. When would you remember coming up with the idea, or that you're going to try to score as many points as you can, gain as many yards as you can, et cetera? Do you remember an influence that came along in either your playing career, coaching career, that told you that's the way to go?
I think, when I played in at the University of New Hampshire, and Chip Kelly was my coordinator, and we were kind of at the beginning stages of the no huddle and going fast, and we want to put a lot of stress in the defense, and it's changed so much since then. But we wanted to get defenses to defend the entire field, horizontally and vertically, and find ways to stress out the defense. And at the time, it was going fast, whether guys not getting the calls in fast enough, maybe not physically in enough shape to handle it for 4 quarters. At that time, it was very different. I think now it's changed as well. But the number one goal is to put as much stress on the defense as you can. Don't make it easy on them. Make it easy on yourself, and allow the guys to play fast.
Thanks, man. Yep. Right next door, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, when you talked with Steel Chambers a year ago about switching to linebacker, how is he what did you envision for him making that switch? Did you think he could be starter, second leading tackler on the team? Just what was kind of your overall expectation? It
didn't have a lot of expectations, but if you had said that this is what's going to happen, then obviously that would have been a success, because where he came from playing running back and to where he's at now with his production has been excellent. But we also now are counting on him to be a starter for us. And, he is a starter for us, and he's had really good production. So, between he and Tommy, I think they're both playing at a high level, and we're going to need those guys if we're going to reach our goals.
Ryan, I want to ask you about the punt. I know it changes based on weather and field position and how good the opposing defense is, but just generally speaking, can you end a drive with a punt and have it be successful? Do you hate punts? Like you guys last year, I think, were last in the country in how often you punted. What's your view of it?
Well, I think it depends on the game that you're in. If you're in a matchup game, back and forth, low scoring, field position game, then absolutely. You could be backed up on the 5-yard line. Our number one goal is to get 2 first downs and get that thing towards midfield, and then allow our punter to get on the field and our punt team to get out there to change and flip the field. I think you saw us do that a little bit in the Notre Dame game. But there's other games where it's kind of back and forth, and you really can't afford to punt because the scores are coming fast and furious. So I think a big part of it, like when you talk about analytics, I think that comes into play. But also there's just a feel for how your team's doing, the way the game's flowing, and the punt can be a huge weapon for you. I think when you can pooch and the ball's about at midfield and you can get that thing inside the 10-yard line and then force a team to go all the way down the field, that's really important in close games as well. So I know those games are coming here, and we're going to have to do a great job on the punt team.
We'll go far right. Adam King, WBNS 10 TV.
Coach, it's easy for us to look at this offense and say there's nothing wrong with it. It's scoring at will. But now that you've had the bye week, a chance to look back, what's maybe the one thing that you need to change, that this offense needs to change moving forward?
I mean, there's more than one. There's a whole bunch that we got to get better at, and I think our guys know that. And I think that's why they come in hungry every day to get better. We know the issues are there, and we have to identify those and be introspective enough to recognize those and get them fixed after a game, even if we've had a lot of success. So, and then the other thing is just staying disciplined enough not to think that you've arrived or that you have a really good offense. It doesn't mean anything going into this game. We got to bring it every single week, and that's why practice is so critically important. Taking pride in your execution, playing with great pad level, understanding how important the ball is, playing really good in situational football. I mean, all these things don't just happen because we've done it in the past or that we have good players or whatever. We have to bring it every single week, and that's the competitive stamina that we've been talking about, and we're going to have to do it again on Saturday.
Fourth row middle, Tony Girdman, Buckeye Huddle.
Ryan, when you do get everybody back full strength, how do you make sure you don't try to force the action or try to get Jackson too involved, or just how do you make sure
it's a great question. You can't get into that. You just can't. It's the same thing we talked about with CJ early in the year. If you start worrying about that, you put yourself at risk of getting beat, and we can't do that. So it'll happen naturally. We just got to go out and play, and we can't focus on or have expectations or focus on the number of touches, the number of runs, the number of throws, the number of catches. Those things we have to take what the defense is giving us, and if that means they're playing a two shell and we got to run it, or if they're coming down with an extra guy in the box, we got to take a one-on-one shot. Then that's what requires us to do. We will. And if one guy's getting double teamed, he's getting double teamed. The ball's got to go somewhere else. We've seen that before. So no, that's one thing we have to make sure we guard from.
Second row middle, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
You mentioned earlier teams like Iowa and the kind of the style that they play and the way they approach things, but you're going to see some teams later this season that aren't satisfied with that kind of style play. They're going to push the action a lot more. So how is that affecting how you guys are approaching practice scenarios right now, the good on good? Are you ramping that up at all as you look at the teams you are playing and the teams that you hope to play?
I think that's the balance you look for in the bye week is, what's coming ahead, and then making sure you focus on beating Iowa. And now after we come off the bye week, all the focus is on Iowa. But last week we did talk about some of those things and try to forecast what's coming ahead.
Front row middle, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, it's not just that Iowa's defense doesn't allow a lot of points or yards. They're very opportunistic.
Yeah.
How is that going to shape the game plan? You're obviously an aggressive offense, but that they rely on their defense for some of their offense.
That's it, yeah. And they force you to execute the thing all the way down the field and get their hands on a lot of balls. And we know I've been there before, so and seen it against these guys live and in color. So it's something we got to talk to our offense about, make sure they understand how important the ball is here, and just do a really good job and recognize that they're a very good defense that, like you said, is going to keep it in front of them. They know their defense. They know how to tackle really, really well. And anytime you're going against that style of a defense, then they're going to create turnovers. So, we have to do a better job. And I think, again, they feel like, they know their defense better than you know your offense and vice versa. And anytime that's the case, you have to do a great job of being detailed yourself and be really clean with the game plan.
Far left, Justin Holbrook, WCMH.
Paris Johnson was named a finalist for the Merit Award for the Armed Forces, on the field doing pretty well. Just the balance of seeing him and his character develop over the years and continue to play well on the field and also contribute off.
Yeah, he's always been well-rounded. His mom, Monica's done an unbelievable job raising him. And Paris has a really good balance of football and life. He's done a lot. He has a foundation, and he's done very well on the field, like you said. So we saw that in recruiting, and I think that's where he saw the culture here at Ohio State and recognized what the culture was here and recognized what Ohio State could do for him. But also we recognized early on what Paris Johnson could do for Ohio State. So I think it's been a great marriage, and in 3 short years he's made a major impact there.
Second row left, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
When you're in a bye week, you can't be everywhere, obviously, when you're going out and recruiting guys. When you're deciding where you're going to be at as the head coach on a Friday night, watching the kid play high school football, how do you come to that decision in your head? Does it depend on the type of recruit, maybe who maybe needs more assistance? Just kind of walk us through that process.
Yeah, just rely on the assistants and rely on Mark and take their advice on what what priorities need to be addressed. Some guys had already been seen. You're only allowed one evaluation here in the fall. So there's only a certain list of guys that we actually could go out and see here this past week, and went out on Monday and Friday, and just try to take their advice and make the best decision on the best use of your time. But it was good to get everybody on the road and be around some great football on Friday night.
Fourth row middle, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, in addition to injuries and things, we talked last week about momentum from carrying it over. How do you feel like that happened with the off weekend, especially getting back to practice yesterday and building on what you did the first half of the season?
Yeah, I think the energy's been really good. I think our guys have, just had a lot of juice about them, even in the off week. Sometimes you feel a lull during that time. I don't feel like that at all, but it's great to get them back. I think a couple days away re-energized them even more, though, coming back into the Woody yesterday.
Second row right, Bill Landis, Rivals.
Right, you talk a lot about having to accentuate different parts of the offense, just being down guys and building up strength in different areas. When you all get back to full strength and you have your full complement of playmakers, does that stuff you've built up remain part of the plan? Does it get put on the back burner in place of the stuff you had in mind coming into the season? Just how do you balance all that once you have everybody back?
I just think it's you have an option of different things now that maybe you didn't have before, but really almost every game plan, what we're trying to do is identify the things that we think give us the best chance to move the football and score and win the game. So rarely do we say, okay, we've done this in the past. No matter what we're seeing on defense, this is what we're going to run. We don't really look at it like that. Okay, what do they do, and how can we attack them? And then here are the tools that we have in our arsenal. But also, what have we done in the past that we can draw upon? See, it's hard to put in something brand new that you haven't worked over and over again. Work all the kinks out. Execute at a high level, but things that you've done that fit in that game plan, certainly you take those out and put them into the game plan and figure out how to dress them up.
Did I miss anybody there in that first round? One other question. Deep, Jeremy Birmingham, Rivals.
Ryan, on a weekend like this when you do have a chance to watch other teams around the country, do you feel better about where you are positioned right now with this current group, or do you find other issues that all of a sudden could be something you have to pay attention to as you try to project the rest of the season?
Both. I think we talked about it as a team yesterday. Just when you're able to sit back and look to see what's going on out there, it just gives you some idea of what's coming ahead. But I think it was at three. I think at least three of the top 10 teams in the country lost this past weekend. So that's the whole emphasis of competitive stamina. You got to bring it every single week, and we know the challenges ahead are bigger. But yeah, it was good to get. Spend a few hours watching some other teams and seeing where they're at.
We're going to go far left, Jared Smalley, WCMH.
Well, Ryan, following up on that, you've told us a number of times how you like to go home and watch games with the family, order food, have the big evening. You had that opportunity Saturday with some of the best games of the season. What did you watch? How did you watch it? Like, how intense was that to watch it?
Yeah, we had a couple TVs going, and we started off in the morning, and then actually in the evening doing some family things. But during the day, we had the TVs going, and we were watching multiple games as many times as we could flip from game to game. We were doing that just to see what was going on. But it was great to see some really good football on Saturday.
All right, that was 21 questions in 17 minutes. We're going to go on to round two.
We're still going, okay.
Dave Biddle, 24/7.
This is not a question about injuries. Did you and Jim Knowles ever have a talk about whether this is like a destination job for him when you hired him? Because I've seen a lot of fans wonder, like they love the hiring of Jim Knowles, but they're like, is this going to be another Jeff Hafley situation? It feels different. Did you guys talk about that at all?
Yeah, I think Jim in the process really had an affinity to Columbus. Had some friends here. He's a Philly guy, so he liked having the city feel, and so the goal was to keep him here as long as we could. But that is a challenge in today's day and age. You see that across the country, everywhere. Is hanging on to staff and trying to do the best we can. But the good news is, we're able to go get who we felt was the best fit here. It wasn't just a name, and obviously Gene allowed us to do that. And so I think if you just try to go look at a list and go pay a bunch of money to the highest guy, then they're going to come in for the money or whatever. In this situation, it was the right fit on our end. It was the right fit on his end. So anytime we do that, we try to project the best we can so that he's here for a while, so we have stability.
Just a quick follow-up. this is probably a better question for him. Do you get the feel? I mean, he's been a head coach before. Do you get the feeling he's content being the D coordinator at Ohio State for as long as you want him here?
Yeah, I do. I think that he enjoys being a coordinator. I think he loves the X and O's of it, and enjoys the interaction every day with the staff, and seems to really enjoy it here at Ohio State.
Right behind him, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
It's one thing to tell recruits what they should expect to see from a defense when you're bringing in basically a brand new staff outside of Coach Jay. When you guys got a chance to, sit and talk with guys so we can evaluate them, just get on the phone with guys this past weekend, did you feel like there was a lot of positive feedback in what they've seen through these first 6 weeks?
Yeah, I think everything we talked about in recruiting leading up to the season, now they're seeing, which is great, because what we said was going to happen has happened and is happening, and we got to keep going on that. But I think the recruits now have seen it, and they're excited about that, and they want to jump on board.
I know you watched Ohio State's Iowa's defense more than their offense, but I want to get your impression of Luke Lachey, who obviously you know who he is. There was interest here. What are your impressions of him, and anything you want to say about him?
Wow, no, I've been watching his career closely, and I've been very impressed with how he's played, and he's made a lot of plays. He's, for tight ends, there's a lot of job responsibilities and descriptions, and he does them all very, very well. And Iowa does an unbelievable job of developing their players, but over the years have developed some really good tight ends, and he's kind of the next one in line. And knowing him and knowing his family, just proud of the way he's played.
Third row left, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors. Ryan, you guys have scored every time you've been in a red zone this year. Touchdowns on all but 2 of those trips. Just what do you think has been the keys to your guys' success in the red zone this year?
I think we've had good balance. I think we've been able to run the football down there when we needed to, but also we've thrown the ball well, and that's going to be important as we head into the second half of the season. Just because we've done it leading up to this point doesn't mean it's going to happen again. So we've got to continue to run the ball down there with good scheme, understand that, take care of the football, and then execute in the red area, throwing the game at a high level, because rarely is somebody wide open in the red zone. So usually those things are covered, and you've seen that so far this year. A lot of contested throws and catches down there. That's living in the red zone, but also getting big down there and getting strong and being powerful.
Ryan, have you all sent any post-game reviews or comments, questions to the Big Ten offense about holding and your defensive linemen?
Yeah, we every week we have back and forth. Bill Carolla does an unbelievable job of communicating with us, and there's some penalties that you can go back and forth on, and they try to do the best they can. But certainly that one's tough, and pass interference is difficult, and those type of things. And so we'll send them in to get clarification. But then there's other ones that hit a little bit closer to home that we try to have better clarity on. But I've just been impressed though with everybody's communication on the field, and also their communication during the week when we send stuff in, getting back from the conference office.
Next door, Tim May, Rival. Nope. Tim May, Letterman Row, on 3.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hey, that took up a lot of time. Ryan, explain to people what makes Iowa so good on defense. I mean, what is their scheme in a nutshell, so people can understand why this is such a tough lock to pick?
Yeah, they first off, they play good complementary football on both sides of the ball. I think that's the number one thing. The second thing is they're well coached with their fundamentals in terms of their pad level, hand placement. They play in a 4-down scheme. They don't do a ton, but when they do change it up, it's very, very effective. They know the things that are how they're going to get attacked, and they have years and years and years of teams game planning them. So they know the slight adjustments they need to make in order to stop what's going on. And I think it all starts from the coordinator and comes down to the type of players that they have. They're tough, they're accountable, they understand the scheme really well.
Second row middle, Nathan Barrett, Cleveland.com.
This is sort of a correlate to what I asked before, I suppose, but what are you seeing from Jim Knowles that is maybe unique in terms of how he's keeping the standard high for a defense that maybe isn't facing great challenges right now during the regular season?
Yeah, that was something that we talked about coming into the season, was that the issues are there despite the result, and that we have to make sure that we're identifying those, and I think he's doing that. And again, a big part of that is, I keep saying it over and over again, is your fundamentals and your techniques, your hand placement, your pad level, those types of things, because at the end of the day, you can get an extra guy to the ball carrier, to the quarterback, and schematically that's great. But eventually it's going to come down to one-on-one. And are we going to win our one-on-ones? And so that always has to be the focus.
Fourth row right, Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic.
Ryan, we've talked a lot about players switching positions what is there a characteristic trait or an IQ thing that makes certain players better at switching positions and excelling right away than maybe others?
I think it starts in high school with multiple sport athletes, with players who play on both sides of the ball. I think guys who play special teams, football players are football players. When guys only play one side of the ball and maybe only play the game of football, it's hard for them to make a transition and do something else when this is all they've ever done. So I think the more sports you play, the more positions you play, the more things you do on the football field, the better football player you are. It allows those guys the opportunity to do something like that.
Right behind him, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Ryan, everybody in college football watch what happened in Ann Arbor, then watch what happened in Knoxville. You guys had the week off, though. Is it kind of nice to almost be as under the radar as the number 2 team in the country can be right now? And do you kind of preach that to your team that there's not a lot of attention paid on you guys right now because there's attention focused elsewhere? It's time to just focus on yourselves.
Well, our message always is to focus on us, as you know, but we have to make sure good, bad, or not much when things are being said or not said, like that has nothing to do with what we're doing on a daily basis. And I think our guys have a good feel for that because we're Ohio State. Everyone knows who Ohio State is, and there's a reason why it's Ohio against the world for years. And we understand that. So we have an unbelievable fan base. Buckeye Nation's unbelievable supportive. They love the Buckeyes, so they get a lot of attention. And nationally, we get a lot of attention. So one of the things that we have to do is figure out a way to block out all the noise, good or bad. So that's not a focus for our players. But, as things move on during the season, the noise gets louder and louder. So that message has to be stronger and stronger.
At the wall, Jeremy Birmingham, Rivals.
It feels like a lifetime ago, but you were on the staff in 2017. Kevin was, Tony was, Brian was. How much recollection is there of what happened against Iowa in 2017? And was that, as you look back on it, is it game plan? Is it execution? What was it about that day that caused it to go the way it did in your perspective? And how do you feel it relates to this weekend?
That's a scar that doesn't go away. And yeah, I've felt it this week for sure. That week in particular, we was coming off the Penn State win, which is an emotional win, going into Kinnick, which is a very difficult place to play, and we turned the ball over. First play of the game was a pick six. I think it was the first play of the game, and then we fought ourselves back, but then turned the ball over too many times, and that was a tough day for all of us. So yeah, anytime you have a scar like that, it's real. And we've talked about it a lot to our staff. We've talked a lot about it to our players. We've talked a lot about as an offensive staff, and we'll continue to talk about it. This team, it was always difficult to beat. Doesn't matter what year it was or what year it is, and that year was no different than it is this year.
We'll go far right. Adam King, WBNS 10 TV.
You've now seen college football with NIL, without NIL. Have you noticed any changes in athletes now that it's really taken effect here? You're 6 weeks into this season. How do you kind of balance that, knowing you can't really have a say in it, but also athletes now have photo shoots that they're doing different things throughout the week?
It's just changed. The landscape's changed, and we try to do the best we can to communicate it. I think our guys are handling it better than most. I mean, it's not always easy. There's different things, but at the end of the day, that's why we recruit great people, and I think they've handled it very well. But to say that it hasn't changed a little bit, it has. Now, our guys who have been recruited here, who are in the program, weren't really recruited with NIL being something that was a thing during the recruiting process. Now that these guys are in high school, they're seeing what's going on at different programs. So that's a change, but I think our guys have handled it very well.
Right in front of him, Clay Hall, WSYX. No? Okay, good. I've got time for a couple more. Second row right. Doug Lane, Maurice, Cleveland.com.
Ryan, you were talking about offenses stressing defenses.
Yeah.
Right? You're trying to win on the scoreboard however you have to do it. But what do you see when you have an offense that can stress a defense, whether it's how they have to prepare that week or maybe they have to take more risks on offense? What do you think it does to an opponent when your offense has that capability?
Yeah, I think it does, being on the other side of the ball, during, my career as a coach, you do feel that. And when that other side is clicking, and it kind of can put some stress on the other side of the ball, just like vice versa. If we're not doing well, but the defense is, or maybe the defense is struggling, and you feel that it just is part of the game. And so, yeah, anytime that we can put stress on the other team, that's what we're trying to do.
And right in front of him, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Right, when you talk about Iowa's defense being fundamentally sound, in particular, they seem really good at preventing big plays, explosives.
Yeah.
They're the only team in the country that hasn't allowed a play 40 yards or more. What makes them good at limiting those? Again,
I think they know how to keep that ball in front of them, but they challenge things, and they know how you're trying to attack them. They have a really good scheme in place and have the answers. They tackle very well. They understand how they fit into the scheme. They have guys with experience over there. I think anytime you have all of those things and you're not too complicated, then you can identify how teams are gonna come after you. And rarely are they out of position. So very sound, very few MAs, and very well coached.
Coach, thank you very
All right,
much.
thanks, guys.
As usual, thanks for joining us today. We'll start with the update I'm sure you guys all are looking forward to on Talia Tungavailoa. MRI on Sunday basically re-aggravated the previous injury that he had against Michigan. Had an MRI, had our doctors look at it, also got a second opinion, and again, just re-aggravated the previous injury and very thankful we had the knee brace on in that game. I know y'all hate to hear this, but Emily, it is a game time decision. He was able to make it back after the Michigan game with this same injury. It's all about how his body feels and recovers, and we'll continue to do the things necessary to keep his safety and health at the front of our decisions, but again, re-aggravated an existing injury. As far as the Indiana game, thoughts after watching the film, I apologize to our team yesterday because, when we won the game, I was still I wasn't very happy with the way we played. And as I said before, I respect winning, and winning is hard in this league, as we all know. And we knew that Indiana was a good team that would play hard, and it would be a four-quarter game, and it ended up being that. We didn't play our best, and, in my effort to push us to perfection, sometimes you lose sight that winning is hard. And so, as I told our team yesterday, I apologize for not celebrating them and what they did in terms of winning a hard-fought game in Bloomington. We're 5-2 heading into homecoming. Homecoming is always a great time around here on campus where former players, former students come back. As I've said every year, homecoming is about the fans. It's not about the team. We're actually the show. And so for us, it's about doing the things necessary to prepare ourselves to go out and play and be the best version of ourselves on Saturday, which I know our team will do. Each week they've continued to do it. I think our team showed tremendous resiliency in the Indiana game to fight back from behind on the road. As I said, we had a lot of missing pieces in there, some starters that were late scratches, and the young players and the players that filled in for those guys filled in admirably, which is a byproduct of how we try to develop our program. I've been a part of homecoming games around here. It's always a special time, as I said. A lot of former players are excited about the start that we've created for our program, so we're hoping to have a great atmosphere out here. The weather's supposed to be great on Saturday, so we hope to have a great atmosphere here in the Shell as we welcome back all of our former players and alums of the university. As far as Northwestern goes, obviously Pat and I go way back. Got a lot of respect for the job he's done there as a head coach at Northwestern, his alma mater. When you watch them on tape, they're a really hard team. I mean, they play hard in all three phases. I know they had a big win earlier in the year against Nebraska, in the game against Penn State, which, you watched that a couple of weeks ago. I know it was a lot of weather issues there, but they're going to fight, and I expect to see that same type of fight out of them when they show up here Saturday. And it's a byproduct of they're taking on the personality of who their coach is. And that's, if you know Pat Fitzgerald, toughness is one of the things that people describe, and that's what this team shows. On the defensive side of the ball, they've got two pass rushers, 99 and 91, that create issues that we will have to address to make sure whoever our quarterback is, that we can do the things necessary to keep him upright and protect it. On the offensive side of the ball, 26, their all-purpose running back is one of the top all-purpose performers in the country. I think he leads them in passing and rushing, or receiving and rushing. Helinski, the quarterback, is one of those guys that has the ability to be a dual-threat quarterback. I will say that their offensive line is as good as an offensive line that we face, and I know they have a guy, their left tackle is a projected first-round draft pick. I would expect them to come in and try to establish the running game because of the talent that they have up front on their offensive line. As good as Michigan's, as good as Minnesota's a year ago, when you look at them across the board. And so we've got a challenge on our hand that I know our players are excited about, an opportunity to get back on the right track here at home in front of our home crowd and do something that meet one of the first goals we have set for ourselves for this year, which is to be a bowl-eligible team, and we have that opportunity here, and I know our players are excited about it. Captains for this game, Greg Rose, Anthony Pecorella, and Spencer Anderson will lead us as our game captains heading into the Northwestern game. With that, I'll open it up for questions.
Afternoon, Mike. The first drive, every first drive this season so far, you guys have been able to put points on the board. 7 games, that's not a small sample size. What have been the ingredients to being able to come out and produce so quickly?
A lot of that credit obviously goes to Dan, the job he does putting together the openers. As most teams do, we have openers that we like. Dan has done a really good job, and the offensive staff as a whole, of putting together the things that we can execute while also dressing them up for us to evaluate how people want to line and defend the things that we present. So a lot of credit goes to Dan and the openers and the quarterback and our players being able to execute those things. We start working on our openers Thursday's practice, so they usually get them introduced on Thursday when we do our Perfect Thursday practice. Friday we have a walkthrough scripted deal where they hit them again, and then we do kind of we mentally go through them on Saturday in a pregame routine where we put our players in position to know what plays we're running and when they're running them. And our players have done a good job of executing. Now, I'd like to see us be able to do that for 4 quarters. And to me, that's the goal. And I think, like you said, we've done a really good job starting fast. I'd like to see us finish strong.
Hey, Michael, how much do you anticipate Talia being able to practice this week, or when would those decisions be made in terms of how much he can do in the build-up to this game?
I mean, they're day to day. I mean, again, this is the same exact injury he had coming out of Michigan, and he played very well the very next week. So it's a day-to-day basis. I know he's living in the training room doing all the things he can to get himself back. Like I said, we're very fortunate. It's just a re-aggravation of the previous injury, and he made it back the following week. And if you know the Tagovailoas, they're tough guys, and they're going to fight through it. But we'll always do what's best for him and first and foremost, and then we'll have guys ready to play if he's unavailable.
Just to clarify, when you mentioned the MRI, I guess those usually look for like structural damage. Was there nothing of that regard, or just could you give me more detail on how to classify this?
Yeah, not a doctor, obviously. So I just go off of what he said. He had a sprained MCL going into the game, which is why the last 2-3 weeks he's wore the knee brace on his plant leg. He re-aggravated the sprained MCL. To what degree? I didn't see the MRI. I'm out of the medical business. This is strictly, I know that our doctors looked at it and felt that basically what he did was re-aggravate the injury that he had, but there was no further structural damage from the first MRI that we did when he hurt himself in the Michigan game to now.
That's really helpful. And on that topic, knowing that you have a bye coming up and that if he were to not play this weekend, he would get 2 weeks, does that have to play into the calculus at all or not?
We're worried about trying to prepare ourselves for Northwestern. And again, I respect your question, but for us, I mean, you put that tape on of Northwestern, I would doubt very seriously anybody in our program feels like we're going to come into this thing and just not approach it as if we've every other game that we prepared for. So we'll stick to kind of the standard we've set. We'll prepare the guys that are available. Every morning we have a staff meeting at 10:30. Our trainer comes up. He gives me the update as to where we are player-wise, who's available, and then we make practice decisions based off of that. So we're going to prepare the guys that he tells me are available to get them ready to play. And then obviously, based on how he feels and the guys, because he's not the only injury we're dealing with. We're a little banged up. But you know what? It gives opportunity for some of these other guys to step up and show what they're capable of doing.
Yeah, Mike, just with Talia, I guess, what is your sense of relief, I guess, and his that this doesn't sound like it was more serious, just given everything he's already been through this year, and I guess when people see someone carted off like that, they're kind of probably fearing the worst initially.
A huge sense of relief, obviously. You know, I stood there and watched them. You know, the way it played out, it looked like it very painful. We're very thankful that, you know, he had the knee brace. I mean, he fights us. He didn't want to play in the knee brace for the last 2-3 weeks. We forced him to do it. You know, it was one of those plays, a totally accidental play, wasn't anything malicious. Very fortunate that, like I said, that we got out of it with nothing further to what he already had, and now it's just a matter of managing and the rehab that goes along with strengthening them and getting them ready to go.
Hey, Coach, good to see you. Your confidence level in Billy Edwards if he has to go?
Tremendous confidence in Billy. You know, a guy that, like I said, we prepare him every week. He gets 40% of the reps as the backup quarterback. You know, we'll continue to, as we monitor where Leah is on a day-to-day basis, those may change. But we recruited him here once he went into the portal just for this purpose. A lot like a year ago, Reese Udinski, having a guy that's capable of coming in. And, you know, Billy's one of those players, and, you know, a lot of people probably make a lot of that he didn't complete a pass, and we really didn't try to run the ball or throw the ball very much. We had a plan of what we wanted to get executed in the running game in the second half. He came in and executed it to a T, made some big plays, protected the football. And I expect him to, if he's the guy that has to play for us this week, I expect him to be able to come in, execute our system as well as anybody, and give us a chance.
Mike, as you mentioned, it's homecoming and it's about the alums. What does it mean for you to see guys that you've coached in previous stops come back and be trusted with the rebuilding of this program?
You know, it's always great, you know, when your former players are part of the program, and I say this to our players often, you know, it's not about the money and giving back, though we would love for those guys to continue to contribute and help us build this thing the right way, but just them giving us their time. I mean, we realize just how valuable a commodity time is, and when former players come back to support the program, to support the mission that we've started here to get this program back to where we all can be really proud of it, that's always a great thing. And so really looking forward, you know, like I said, it's supposed to be great weather, supposed to be a great environment. It's a 3:30 kick, which is perfect. Gives people time to come back, tailgate, and catch up with each other, and then come see a great game in the Shell Saturday, and then celebrate, hopefully, if we're the best version of ourselves, a win and bowl eligibility. So lots at stake.
Sorry, I just thought you wanted one more quarterback question.
Yeah, of course.
In terms of the offensive system with a Billy offense versus a Talia offense, I mean, how similar are those, or how much do you adjust to make sure you're playing to their individual strengths?
I mean, you always play to the quarterback's strength, but I would say that Billy and Leah are very similar. Though Billy didn't complete a pass in this last game, Billy is a thrower that has kind of I call it a weird athleticism, because when you look at him, you wouldn't think that he is athletic as he is, but Billy has very good functional athleticism. He knows how to run the ball. You know, I kind of compared him when we started recruiting him. He kind of reminded me of the old Cincinnati Bengal quarterback that was down with Dallas that played at TCU, whose name I can't remember right now. Who? Andy Dalton. Very similar. Not just because he's a redhead, but like literally body type, and having coached against Andy in college, he was a thrower, but he also was really functional as a runner, that you better respect his legs. And Billy's one of those guys. He throws it accurately. He's smart, tough, reliable. So if he's a guy, if he has to play for us, we have the utmost confidence in him as a staff and as a team that he'll be able to come in and get the job done if he's needed.
Hey, Michael, at one point, getting to bowl eligibility was the goal for this program. With now, with a couple games left and this is on the horizon, how much of this just a benchmark on the way to, I guess, bigger things for this program and for you as a coach?
Yeah, we're focused on just this one, and one of our first goals year in and year out is to become a bowl-eligible team year in and year out, so that's part of the standard or our foundation that we want to create, which we don't take for granted. And so this is an opportunity to do it, earlier than a year ago where it came down to our last game. So shows improvement, but for us, it's just about that. This game and what this game opportunity offers us as a team, and from that point on, we'll just take it one step after this each game like we try to do.
Coach, you mentioned being banged up. There's obviously a lot of other injuries as well. A lot of the guys you mentioned as borderline guys for game time decisions, having traveled on the roads. Does being at home this week maybe open the door for guys like Ruben to be available to more of an emergency capacity?
Yeah, again, being at home and Ruben's one of those guys. Jacoian Bennett's one of those guys. We've had quite a few. Jalen had a family emergency that popped up. So being home affords us that extra day that we're not traveling, where they can get more treatment by being a game that's at 3:30. We can treat them all the way up till game time. And so, yeah, a bunch of these guys will be game time decisions, and I know you guys hate it, and when I say it, but we literally evaluate them in warm-ups, and then when we walk up the tunnel, I ask the trainer, how does he look? Where is he? And then I ask the coach who warmed him up, what did he look like? And then we make a decision, hey, he's a scratch, let's go with this guy. And that's just that's how, when you talk about game time decision, it literally is not just me buying time and trying to cover up some conspiracy theory that we hide injuries.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate the time.
Thanks. Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate everybody coming, like always. Cover Penn State football. We talk about the stats that we talk about every week. We won the turnover battle. We won the penalty battle. Did not win drive start, sack, or explosive play battle. When you kind of go back and you look at the game and you watch the tape and you meet with the players, I think we played hard. We really did. But we did not play nearly as clean as we needed to play. And we talked about that from the beginning of the season. Typically, the team that makes the least amount of mistakes is going to win. And uncharacteristically, I think there was times where we lost our poise and composure. I think our kids have a ton of investment, and our staff has a ton of investment, and we did not play or handle that as well as we should have, obviously. Moving on to Minnesota with P.J. Fleck and University of Minnesota. I've known P.J. for a long time. Actually, P.J., when I was at Vanderbilt, came and visited. When I first got to Penn State, came and visited. So I knew him before both of us were in the Big Ten. Obviously have followed his career closely. Obviously, Kirk Shiraka, there's obviously a ton of history there, not only coming from the state of Pennsylvania, but also had been on our staff for a period of time. Kirk's done a great job. He's had a great career, and he's back, obviously, doing a really good job with their offense. Guys that jump out to us, the running back is a really good player, Mohammed Ibrahim. It's his 6th year there. He's from Baltimore, Good Counsel High School, and has had as productive a college career as there is. They got a massive tight end, number 88, in Span Ford. Obviously, their quarterback is also another 6-year guy, and him and Kirk have worked extremely well together. And then their center is on every award watch list there is, and he's another 6-year guy as well. Defensive coordinator, also a Pennsylvania guy, Joe Rossi. I know Joe, got a ton of respect for what he does. He's from Pittsburgh and has done a really good job in taking over the defense there and improving it year by year. The guys that jump out to you is their middle linebacker, number 55, Suri Marine. If I'm saying that right, I hope I am. If not, I apologize. Free safety, number 27, Nubin. Cornerback, number 5, Wally. And the defensive end, number 8, Rush. All those guys are playing really good football for them right now. And then on special teams, Rob Wenger, Rob's been with them, for 6 years. And their kicker, number 95, Trickett, and their kick return, punt return guy is an undersized guy, but has had some explosive plays, number 81, Redding. So tremendous challenge. Looking forward to getting out there in Beaver Stadium, finding a way to be 1-0 this week, and being able to come in this press conference next week and have some good stuff to talk about.
We'll start with Rich Scarcella from the Reading Eagle in a new room, apparently, and then we'll go to Frank Bodani.
Rich?
Rich?
How are you?
There you are. I appreciate the change up.
Thank you. James, can you shed light on Sean Clifford's availability for Saturday? And if he can play, you still plan on playing Drew?
Yeah, so as you guys know, unless it's like a season-ending injury, I typically don't announce that. Also, it's Tuesday. We haven't even practiced yet, so it's hard for me to give you guys an answer that helps you do your job at this stage. But yeah, nothing has changed with the plan or the model at this stage.
Frank Bodani, New York Daily Record, then Donnie Collins.
Hi, James. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Your tight ends, do you think you've gotten enough from that group this year? How important is that group, especially the last couple of games? I know Theo's healthy again, but I think he only has a couple of catches the entire season.
Yeah, well, to your point, just like you just said, he missed a couple games too. So, that plays a part in it. But yeah, I think when we have played well, the tight ends have had a big role in what we were doing offensively. And when we struggled, they haven't. So I think your point is a good one. That's a room that we got a lot of confidence in, and has done some really good things for us. And we need to get them involved and keep them involved in both the pass and run.
Donnie Collins, Scranton Times Tribune, then Mark Wogenrich.
Hey, James.
How we doing?
Doing well. When you went back and watched the film, what did you see with the run defense that went wrong against Michigan? And when you look at Minnesota on film, another team that likes to run the ball, how similar is what they do to what Michigan does in that aspect?
Yeah, I think there's similarities, and I think we also know this is a copycat business, right? So people are going to watch the film and take some ideas. So Minnesota wants to run the ball. They want to constrict kind of the life out of the game in terms of time and possession, all those types of things. So yeah, we're gonna have to be ready to defend the run and the play action passes that come off of it for them. And they got a really productive back that they do a great job within their system. So that'll be a challenge. There's no doubt about it. We're going to need to be ready. The corrections that we made on Sunday from the previous game, as well as getting prepared for what Minnesota is going to try to do. Obviously, is going to be a big storyline in this game.
Mark Wogenrich, All Penn State, then Corey Geiger.
Hi, James.
Hey, Mark.
How would you define Penn State's offensive identity this season, and have you achieved it yet?
Yeah, I think there's been times where I think it's been pretty obvious what our identity is, which is run and play action pass, and be efficient in the passing game. We really haven't been explosive in the passing game this year like we had last year and previous years, but I think when we've been at our best, been able to run and pass the ball and play action pass and spread the ball around. That's I think when we're going to be at our best. Obviously, when we can sprinkle in some explosive passes like we did on Saturday, those things would be helpful. There's no doubt about it. But I think it's when we're able to run and throw the ball consistently and keep people on their toes, not being able to predict what we're going to do and how we're going to do it.
Corey Geiger, DK Pittsburgh Sports, then John McGonigal.
James, probably football in general, everybody likes to talk about the backup quarterback. That's just a generality thing. There are a lot of people right now that would want to see Drew, both media, fans, everybody. What would you say to those people that are calling for maybe a possible change at this point?
Yeah, well, again, I don't agree with this statement, everybody. But I guess there's a lot of different things that I would say is I think number one, That's the wrong message. That's the wrong signal. And Sean has earned the right to be on the field. That doesn't mean that Drew hasn't done some good things, and we'd love to get him an opportunity and continue to grow him and to continue to develop him for his future, no doubt about it. It's just interesting, and we've kind of talked about the whole dynamics of college football and how it's changed, and specifically at Penn State. But I got a text from Mike Gesicki on Sunday when I was breaking down the film, and in 2016 we lost to Michigan and played Minnesota the following week and found a way to get that win, and the rest of the season went pretty well. So, I think there are tons of examples, not only at Penn State, but across the country, where you do everything you possibly can to win the next week. And I think some of those approaches aren't necessarily about winning this week, in my opinion.
John McGonigal, Penn Live, and then Sam Cohen.
Yeah, James, look, how nice is it to have someone like Olu on the left side, the way that he's developed and grown into his own, and on the right side, between Bryce and Caden, is that a rotation that you're comfortable with going forward through these weeks, or do you want one of those guys to step up and take that job?
Yeah, obviously you'd always love to be in a position across the board where you got one guy that's really playing, at an extremely high level. But I think I've told you guys before, we got a ton of respect for Bryce Effner and how he's played. I think he brings a ton of value, not only at tackle and guard, and we'll continue to play him in both of those roles. But, again, back to, when you talk about protecting the quarterback, I do think that's an area overall that we've been better. I also think it's how we're calling the game and how we're managing the game that's helped with that. But yeah, obviously Olu is playing really well at left tackle. We're not really rotating there. So whether, that happens at other positions, obviously that's a positive. But there's still some guys, that I feel like on the offensive line as well as at other positions that deserve the right to get on the field based on how they have trained and practiced and prepared. And Bryce Effner, I think, is a really good example of that. We want to make sure Bryce is getting on the field at tackle and at guard, or when we go with an extra offensive lineman, which we've also done at times this year as well. And you look at his rep counts, they're very similar, to some of the other guys that he's playing with.
Sam Cohen, Philadelphia Inquirer, and then we'll come to the room.
Hey, James, how are you?
Hey, Sam, good. How are you?
Good, thanks. I want to ask about Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. How would you evaluate where they are at this point in the season, and how would you compare that to where you thought they might be at this point in the season?
Yeah, I think it really depends on what you're talking about. You're talking about before the season started. You're talking about the beginning of the season. I think they're ahead. They've played a ton of football for us. They've learned a lot through both, good experiences and challenging experiences and adversity. I think they've learned how physical and how challenging our conference is, specifically our side of the conference. So yeah, for this week, those experiences are valuable for them. And, I'm a huge believer in the experience that they've gained on the field, from a physical perspective, from a mental perspective, that they're growing every single day. And they've been very supportive of each other, as well as, Kevon's been a great mentor too. So, there's a lot of positives there. Obviously, we need to create some more big plays and get more explosive. With those running backs, we have the ability to do that. We've done it at times this year. We need to be more consistent.
We'll open up questions here in the room. We'll start with Mark.
James, I wanted to follow up on your comments after the game where you mentioned the defensive tackles, that you need to get bigger. And I think what you were getting at is that you have to recruit better there. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I wonder if you could expand on that and what were the issues you were seeing that made you say that. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I would not describe it the way you described it, but I think you guys know typically when I talk about these things, it's all of it. It's development, it's weight room, it's nutrition, it's recruiting, it's scheme, it's all of it. But what I was talking about is just size is a tool and size is a weapon. No different than speed and quickness and power and strength and agility and all those types of things. And there's just that fine line of that sweet spot that you have to find in terms of the size that you can put on that's good weight of lean muscle mass, that they're as big and strong and as athletic as they possibly can be, not putting on weight for weight's sake. So it's all of that. It's not the specific point that you made. It's all of those things. And I know when we're breaking film down on offense and studying people, and they got 2 300-pound or a 300-pound and a 330-pound defensive tackle and a war daddy in there, and they're between 255 and 265 or 70 at defensive end. That's a problem. I think there's some defenses that we have played or that we have studied, that do that. And don't get me wrong, I really like our D-line room, but I think there are some guys that I think could help us and help them if they gained a few pounds. I think size is a weapon, and I'd like to be bigger, really across both fronts.
Tyler.
Hi, James.
Hey, Tyler.
This will be Mike Yurcich's 20th game working with you as your offensive coordinator. Curious, up to this point, how would you evaluate his ability to adjust the game plan based on your personnel strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah, I think the change in use of our tight ends and formations and running the ball and things like that, I think is a change. I think is an adjustment that puts us in the best position to play to our strengths. Obviously, we got to go out and execute consistently across the board. But I think there's been a pretty dramatic change if you look at Mike and who he's been over his career and who we are, right now based on our personnel. I think it's pretty significant.
Ben?
James, over here in the diagonal section. You've talked about you'd like this or like that in terms of size, in terms of approach, in terms of consistency in certain areas. What's the disconnect in making that happen? I realize that fixing problems isn't a finger snap, but you go, I'd like bigger defensive linemen. That seems in the hierarchy of things an easier one to sort of navigate around. When you have those sorts of issues that seem a little, not straightforward, but maybe less complex than other things, what keeps that from happening over the course of time?
Yeah, I think that's more than a fair question, but I don't really feel like right now is the appropriate time to get into. I pretty much have answered your question in the past. We've talked about these things in the past, and I'm happy to talk about them in the off season. But right now, literally, we're focused on beating Minnesota and what we can do in the short term, and yeah. That's not one of those things that's a short-term fix. Obviously, we can put on a couple pounds, but that's not a short-term fix for us right now. So I'm happy to kind of get into those things after the season. Although I've answered some of these questions in the past. But we're focused on Minnesota and getting better and putting our guys in the best position to be successful. Making sure that we're using the right techniques and fundamentals, to give us a chance to get a win this week and build off of it.
Neil?
James, early in the game, looked like there was nobody over, say, the right guard. Sean was under center. Can he call an audible there, or did he just not maybe see that? And also, I was curious what happened in the tunnel, if you could explain. Was that after the game? If that was an issue with Michigan or something that you guys broached with the Big Ten.
Yep. So with audibles, yeah, we have a system that allows us to audible at the line of scrimmage or looking to the sideline, like I think you guys see us do a lot. But that wasn't necessarily what we were looking for in that situation. Our biggest issue is we got beat on that play at one offensive line position, and we didn't come off on a double team on another. But yeah, we have the ability to check it. As you guys know, we do that fairly often. Again, I'd prefer to talk about these things in the off season, but the one tunnel, is a problem. It's a problem and has been. And to me, we need to put a policy in place, from a conference perspective. In my mind, that's going to stop these. We're not the first team to kind of get into a jawing match, in the tunnel. For me, I want to focus on getting my team into the locker room and not jawing back and forth. But want my team to get in the locker room and their team to get in the locker room. But there really should be a policy that the first team that goes in, there's a buffer. Because if not, this team starts talking to this team, they start jawing back and forth. And what's going to happen is something bad is going to happen before we put in a policy. And all there's got to be is a 2-minute or a minute buffer in between the two teams that this team's in before that team gets close. And however we want to do it. But we're not the first team that's had issues like that. To me, under the current structure, we won't be the last. And to me, there's a really easy solution, but we got to do it. But for me, I want to get our team in the locker room. I'm not. That's my concern.
Saber. James, you mentioned the lack of offensive explosion this year. Is that more about Sean not connecting with wide receivers on those opportunities, or calling for those opportunities less from an offensive coordinator perspective?
Yes, it's both. We gotta hit more of the ones we call. We could call a few more, but the challenge is, right, if you take a shot on first down and you hit it, then it's a great call. If you don't, now you're on second and long and you're increasing the chances of being on third and long. So that's always the fine balance between those things. And then the other thing is you don't want to always be taking shots on second and one when everybody in the stadium knows that's a shot down. So it's that fine line between those two things. And you're always most effective when you're being explosive and creating most of your first downs on first and second down before you even get to third down.
Daniel?
James, Nick Tarburton talked today about the defense watching the film today as a unit and kind of having to sit with that result. How have you seen the defense kind of respond to what happened Saturday, and how confident are you in them to avoid a similar result against a team that, like you said, is going to try to do something similar to what you guys just saw?
I think the meeting was good. I was in the meeting. I thought it was a really good meeting, and I think what has happened at times, and we've talked about this a little bit before, is our guys, their investment level is really high, and guys end up trying to make plays rather than specifically doing their job. And the reality is a lot of times when you do that, the plays just come to you organically. So it was a good meeting. We went through everything in detail, make sure everybody is on the same page. But it was needed. And, to your point, it's going to be important that we get those things corrected and get those things corrected quickly because we got a team that likes to do similar things.
Ryan, in the back left. Yep, it's on.
Oh, hey, James. So obviously the big week, it's the whiteout. And when you guys made the decision at the beginning of the season to make Minnesota the whiteout over Ohio State, what kind of factor did this game being a night game kind of play into that? And why do you think it's important to have that game at night?
Yeah, I think we talked about this before. We did a survey with the fans and kind of figured out what they felt like was the most important thing to do. We had pretty strong inclination of what time certain games were going to be at. Obviously, your record obviously factors into a lot of those things and the teams that you're playing. But yeah, we talked about that at the beginning of the season. That played a factor in the decision making. There's no doubt about it.
Audrey?
James, back here. You lost Landon Tangwell before the game even started. Do you anticipate him being able to go this week?
So it's Tuesday. We haven't practiced yet. It's not a season-ending injury, so I won't address it unless it's a season-ending injury. We have not practiced yet, and I'm not sure if he will be available or not. We're hopeful. He was in getting treatment on Sunday. He was in getting treatment on Monday. and we'll see kind of where he's at, end of the week. He's also a guy who's played a lot of football for us. So hopefully if we can get him some practice reps this week, then he's got a chance to go. But I don't have a whole lot of information on Tuesday when it comes to injuries unless they're season-ending injuries.
And the follow-up to that, how do you think Hunter Norzed has done, and how important has it been getting him back?
Yeah, it's been good. Hunter, we look at a lot like Effner. We view those guys as starters for us, and having him available and able to play was obviously really important after losing Landon, because he went from being in a rotation to starting and being the guy.
Last question to T. Frank.
James, how you doing?
Good. How are you, T. Frank?
Good. After a game like Saturday, I think there's a lot of external overreaction or intense reaction about you need to change X, need to change Y, need to change Z. How much do internally you feel that at times in a situation like that? And when do you know, okay, it is time to pivot either offensively or defensively if something hasn't been working for you?
Yeah. So again, I think a perfectly fair question. But I'll go back to kind of what I said with Mike Gesicki. We were 2-2, I think, lost to Michigan in a similar type game, and things went well. So I'm not going to look too far ahead. I'm not going to look too far behind. I think there was 6 undefeated teams that lost last week. Where I probably am concerned about it is, to your point, it's hard for me to insulate the players and the staff from it. And I think the way you described it, I think is accurate. So what we want to do is okay, let's watch the tape, let's make the corrections, let's learn from it, and then let's move forward and find a way to be 1-0 this week. Winning is hard to do at this level, and that's our focus. But I think your point is a fair one, and what I'm trying to do is do everything I possibly can to control the Lash building and the messages and the vibe that's in that building, so that the Lash practice fields are the way they need to be, and then Beaver Stadium is the way it needs to be, so then we got a chance for 110,000 or 7,000 or whatever it is fans coming out of that stadium Saturday night at some time around, 11:50, 12 o'clock. Happy.
Thank you, Coach. Thanks, everybody.
James Franklin dealing with a lot of questions about whether Penn State expects to make significant changes this weekend. And starting at quarterback, he was asked a question about how externally everyone is calling for Drew Allard to replace Sean Clifford. Franklin said, quote, "Number one, that's the wrong message, the wrong signal. He does not believe that, quote unquote, everyone is calling for that change. He says Sean has earned the right to be on the field," end quote. And while that wraps up our press conference coverage for this Tuesday, we have plenty more still to come later on The Big Show. Tonight, 10 o'clock Eastern, join Jake Butt and yours truly as we analyze the state of play for the Big Ten's unbeatens, Ohio State and Michigan. Illinois, considered by many at this point to be the favorite in the West. What's the key for the Illini moving forward? And Purdue has not beaten Wisconsin since 2003. Is this the weekend? Jake explains how the Boilers can finally overcome the Badgers. All that and more coming up tonight on The Big Show at 10 o'clock Eastern. But for now, that wraps up this Tuesday Coaches Press Conference edition of Big Ten Live here on Big Ten Network. As always, I'm Rick Pizzo saying thanks so much for hanging with us here on Big Ten Network, and we'll see you later tonight for The Big Show.